your flesh and blood.
Welcome to Tell Me Your Story. New paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here 9 times a week. Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will take time to subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn, be entertained and inspired. A reminder that Choices, which is my book, 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. We also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, please go to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address. If you go to richarddugan.com, there is also a link directly to PayPal so that you can send us whatever support you can. And we thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We also ask that you take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And with that, we now take you to our very special interview and guest here on Tell Me Your Story. Welcome to Tell Me Your Story. I cannot resist. This is the second time we've had this gentleman on the program, and he has written a book. His name is Beatty Carmichael, and he's written a book called Outrageous Peace. Beatty, thank you for joining us again. I'm looking forward to our conversation as we've chatted before the program about so many different things, and it's something I know that a lot of people could sure use. Because they're experiencing a lot of other outrageous things going on in their lives. And let's talk a little bit about this. Welcome back. It's good to see you again.
Well, Richard, it's great to be back, and it's good to see you too. So this is going to be fun.
Absolutely. Outrageous Peace. We want to sort of give a little bit of a synopsis for those who have not listened to the first interview that we have, and it, of course, is available on YouTube and SoundCloud and all of the usual outlets that I'll mention a little bit later. And the book has been out, how long has it been out for folks?
About 2-3 months, maybe, right about 2 months now.
Yeah, so it's talking about, of course, peace and alignment, and you're a peace and alignment expert, and it's, to me, it is just an incredible opportunity for people. The website, by the way, is so easy. Outrageouspeace.com, of course, will be linked to that. Do you recall when the first time it was that you actually experienced outrageous peace? If you can share that experience with us. And was it because of a series of steps in a process that you had come across or created yourself or intuited that brought you to that moment of outrageous peace?
You know, I don't remember the first. I remember some of the early times.
Mm-hmm.
But to answer your second question first, this is something that it took a while to develop, understand, perfect, I see pictures in my mind's eyes in terms of concepts, and to start to connect some dots in the things that I was seeing and helping people start to get peace back into their lives. I think one of the earlier examples of this for me, I was, is kind of, this is really strange. So take it for what it's worth, okay? My wife and I met this homeless couple going into Walmart. We just started talking with them. We have a heart for the less fortunate and just trying to help out. And they mentioned that they had just gotten an apartment from the government, and they were excited about that. And I said, well, do you have anything to put in the apartment? You know, like if you've been living on the streets, you probably don't have linens, you probably don't have pots and pans and things of that sort to kind of live there. And they didn't. So I said, well, come in, we'll help get you set up a little bit, you know, what we could do.
Mm-hmm.
So we took them in, and while we were there, I bought a book for them on just kind of uh, growth, just personal growth and things of that sort. And the couple's name is Brandon and Lanita. And I was teasing Brandon as we're walking down because Lanita was carrying the book. It was about the size of outrageous piece. And I said, you're going to have to steal the book from Lanita if you're going to read it. And Lanita said, oh, no, no, Brandon reads all the books to me because I can't read. And I thought, oh, you know, my heart just sunk. And I said, have you never learned to read? She said, no, I know how to read, but my eyes are blurry and I can't read. And I said, so I kind of tested it out. I said, I gave her the book. Actually, Brandon had on a hat that said Levi's up on top. And I said, can you read the word Levi's on his hat? She says, no, it's too blurry. I gave her the book, and she literally had to bring it up to about 3 inches from her eyes before she could focus enough on the words to read it. And I said, in generally paraphrase, I said, it feels like you've got a misalignment somewhere, because I've experienced that when someone is out of alignment internally, there are things physically that start to happen a lot of the times. And I had a sense that based on coming from the homeless environment, and I deal with drug addicts who have been homeless for a while, so I understand that lifestyle. And I said, do you have unforgiveness for anyone? She goes, yes. And I said, who is it? She says, my ex-boyfriend. He grabbed me by the back of my hair and pounded my face over and over again into the side of a dresser until all of my teeth were busted out. And she grinned at me. She had no teeth, top or bottom, in the front of her mouth. So this is a very traumatic thing, obviously, and it makes a lot of understanding why there'd be no forgiveness. And I understand about forgiveness. It's for unforgiveness is where we hold on to something internally that our conscience says you need to release it because it does you no good to hold on to it. And it, as we talked in the last time, and I'll bring our listeners up to date in just a moment, but it gets us internally out of alignment, which then creates pressure physically and mentally. And I thought that's what was going on. So I guided her in how to release that unforgiveness toward this ex-boyfriend who traumatically abused her. And I was able to check back a little bit later because we would go to that Walmart and see them periodically. And she told me that after doing that, by the end of her day, her eyesight had fully restored to where she could read a book normally. She could see normally. And so what was going on is something internally. We talked about the last time that our body, from a health-wise, is like a stool, a three-legged stool. And those three legs are mental, physical, and spiritual. And when any one of those legs is out of whack, out of alignment, it puts pressure and stress on the other two legs. And there's this part of us called the spiritual side, not a religious spiritual, but is simply not mental or physical. It's something else within us. And the simple way to understand is think about your conscience. It lets you know if you've done right or wrong. And usually when we have unforgiveness towards someone, it lets us know that that's wrong. But when we are out of balance, out of alignment internally, it starts to create stress on the mental and physical. And she had that unforgiveness for a long enough time that it just constantly put more stress, and it created this fuzzy eyesight for her that just got consistently worse. And what's interesting, Richard, is I see this at the Addiction Recovery Center a lot. Someone will say, I keep having to get stronger and stronger reading glasses. I said, I bet there's unforgiveness. Do you have anyone that you have unforgiveness for? Yes. Susie 2 weeks ago really did something here at the center, and it made me so mad I wouldn't forgive her. I said, well, let's release that. And then by the next day, they're back down to normal reading glasses. So I see this happen a lot. So that was the first of the things that I really recall. And applying this process of misalignment, strengthening that third leg of the spiritual side, and taking pressure off the physical and mental, and seeing results start to happen.
You know, that kind of answers a question that I wanted to ask my mom after my father's passing. I actually wanted to ask the both of them the same question. Is there anything that you still hold against dad that happened in your relationship and so forth? And the reason I can answer the question no for my mother is because of her health. I mean, you talk about that, and that's sort of the outer manifestation of the lack of forgiveness.
Right.
So I sit here thinking, wow, maybe, just maybe, some of the other conditions that are more internal, although, when you talk about vision, it's sort of an internal thing because it's in the eye. High blood pressure, high blood sugar, whatever the other conditions are. There's some, in spite of the fact that, there's a couple of there's a biblical passage that says, um, um, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. And I love this one little video I saw where this person was saying, if you have enemies, not if somebody is attacking you. No, no, no. If you, in your heart, in your mind, have enemies, then yeah, you want to love your enemy. But what if you are able to let all of that go and you personally don't have enemies? All right. Then there's no enemies that you have to love. You just love everybody. Okay. And the same thing for those who persecute you. If you believe that there are those who persecute you, then you need to, pray for them. Otherwise, you just pray for people in general. Pray for good health and wealth and all of those wonderful things and a good life, quality of life. And I thought, wow, never thought of it that way because it's a matter of perception. And I myself think, well, I don't have any enemies. There's nobody that I hate. I mean, I could sit here and tell you certain things, but you know what? None of it really matters. Of these other people, that's them. That's their perspective on life. They're behaving in a certain way based upon those perspectives, and so on and so forth. So I'm sitting here going, I don't have any enemies, and I don't have anybody that's persecuting me, that's coming after me. You know, I know that people will perceive organizations, agencies, companies, businesses that are harassing them with phone calls and all kinds of mail, all this kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, but you have to think of it from a maybe different perspective that they're not persecuting you. They're carrying out the protocols that have been put in place by the owners, the board, whoever is in charge making those rules and regulations. It's like the people on the phone when you call customer service. They didn't make the rules. And they're not persecuting you. They're just doing their job, right? So
Yeah.
whenever I talk to these folks, I always keep that in mind. It's like, hey, if I stay calm, number one, I'm probably going to get a better outcome than if I go at them and attack them because I think they're persecuting me. What about that in especially when it comes to forgiveness? Um, not only in terms of the health issues that we're dealing with and the examples that you just gave, but just in terms of our perspective on the whole situation, where this is that sort of part of the releasing where we change our perspective.
Almost, but not quite.
Okay.
So, so think about this. You got a problem. You call customer service and you're really upset. So you take it out on the customer service person. That's not necessarily a misalignment. It's the beginnings of a misalignment, but
Mhm.
it's the misalignment would be you really upset that person. She bursts into tears, or if it's a he bursts into tears.
Mhm.
And you feel really bad and you never say, please forgive me, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take it out on you. That would be releasing it, right? But if you cause them to burst into tears and you continue to fume and you just left frustrated, hang up the phone, slam it down, and go about life, and you stay upset, it's the staying upset that is the misalignment. But simply being upset at that moment and just being frustrated, that's not misalignment. Misalignment is, you use a Bible verse. Here's another. There's a lot of great passages in the Bible that are just good everyday wisdom. And one of them says, do not let the sun go down on your anger, right? And what that is saying is, okay, we're going to get angry. The key is don't hold on to it. Mm-hmm. Like we mentioned last time, there's a neighbor in my neighborhood that has a bumper sticker that says, I run to get the crazies out. And what I anticipate has happened is she got really angry somewhere and she held on to it. And when you hold on to it, that third leg, right, is you're misaligned in that spiritual leg. And now it puts stress on the other two legs, mental and physical. And so now she's staying irritable. And the more she holds on to whatever it was that she hasn't released, the angrier and angrier, more irritable she gets. And it now becomes this underlying tension that's so much of an underlying tension in her life. She recognizes it as simply part of her identity. So now she thinks it's cute. Put the bumper sticker on. I run to get rid of the crazies, because she admits, I've got crazies going on. What she doesn't realize is it doesn't have to be that way. She's in what I will call a state of lack of peace. Inside, there's not peace because there's something, and she's forgotten what it is. There's something that she's not released. This happened to me years back in business. I remember I was just irritable day after day. And I'm normally a happy-go-lucky guy, always optimistic, always overlooking people's faults. I release things easy. But this time I was just really frustrated. And I had to stop and think, well, what is going on? I'm just irritable on everything. And then I thought back, when did it begin? And it was close enough that I thought, I had these two clients, and they really ticked me off. I just got to release it. And so I just released it, and now all the irritability left, I was back to normal. But it's just that thing internally. And when things happen in our lives that we start to sense something's off, that's a signal that internally we're out of alignment and we're holding on to something we need to release. And that's what my book, Outrageous Peace, is all about. It guides you into how to identify, but most importantly, how to guide yourself into releasing it. It's not as easy as it sounds. This is what I've worked on for years and how to perfect it. But yeah, so that's why I'm saying what you can get upset, and that's okay. It's simply let it go before the end of the day, or now that gets into what I'm talking about.
Beatty Carmichael is our guest here on the program, and we're talking about outrageous peace here on Tell Me Your Story. You know, Beatty, I'm fascinated by this concept of outrageous peace, and of course, your book, Outrageous Peace, the website outrageouspeace.com. A lot of redundancy there, but you know what? It bears repeating over and over and over again. Be the peace that you want to see and experience. Be the outrageous peace that you want to see and experience. I think it's important. But I loved something that we talked about the last time, and that is, and I'm not saying that this makes it easy. It might make it a little easier, but you don't have to go to the person that you are forgiving to seek forgiveness or literally do anything in that regard. You can do it within yourself. And I just say it makes it a little easier in that regard, because at least if you're embarrassed by the lack of forgiveness for this person, and yet you say you love this person, maybe they're your spouse or your child. You know, it's one of the reasons I was curious about my mother's perspective on my father, and if she'd forgiven him for whatever transgressions or things that he had done, maybe gifts that he had given her that weren't the greatest over the years. and it was 62 years they were married. So
Wow.
a lot of gifts, both Christmas and birthday and anniversary and so on. I will say that they chose a good day to be married, June 3rd, because his birthday was the 13th of August, hers the 17th of September. So it wasn't all jammed together where, oh, I got a birthday here on the
Mhm.
first or the second of the month, and now there's another holiday in the middle of the month, and then another one, an anniversary at the end of the month, and it's like the whole month is just like, and you gotta outdo yourself each time. But talk to us a little bit about this process where, who knows, maybe somewhere down the road you might say some things to the person, especially if they're a loved one that you're connected with. Maybe not saying, oh, I just want you to know that I have forgiven you for. You don't want to come at it that way, but maybe there are other ways that you can show them that you've let that go, that you're not keeping score, that kind of thing, and that you've moved on from that. And am I correct that we might forgive, but we don't forget? Or by forgiving, is it something that kind of appropriately so gets pushed into the memory bank somewhere where we don't think about it
Yeah.
anymore because it doesn't bother us?
So, so that's interesting. There's a lot to unpack a little bit. I'll keep it short. First off, one for our listeners that the misalignment that I'm talking about, unforgiveness is one of about 10 or 12 or 15 areas that I've identified.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually the number one biggest area for most people. When you forgive someone, whether you remember it or not depends on really how long it takes you to forgive. I think this is, if I were to kind of piece things together, someone hurts me, my wife does something, I get really frustrated, I forgive her immediately. I've forgotten about it by the next day
Mm-hmm.
because it never had a time to set in and create a long-term memory. But if she does something and I hold unforgiveness and I stew over it and I let it fester, then by the time I end up forgiving her, it may create a long-term memory for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I also think a lot of times it may be the intensity of what happens. Sometimes we let little things get us upset and we hold an unforgiveness. Lots of little unforgivenesses, but then there may be one thing that's really big, and maybe it's simply the big ones that we don't forget. All that to say is forgiveness and forgetting are somewhat correlated, but I'm not sure they're exactly correlated. The most important thing, though, is like let's talk about a forgiveness that is tied to a relationship that you want to preserve.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you forgive. Forgiveness on your end is simply releasing it on your end. It doesn't have to go to the person and say, "I forgive you." But if you're in a close relationship, it's probably healthy that you do that. But the misalignment internally that you're holding on to is only internal. It's not external. So you don't have to go out and say, wife, best friend, stranger, I forgive you. It's simply an internal thing. But then the other comment you mentioned is about restoring the relationship. What happens with unforgiveness, and this is more by observation of what I see, when I have unforgiveness towards someone, I don't want to be around them. And when I am around them, it's very obvious. There's something underneath my skin that I don't like about them. And I usually make it known. So there's always this tension, this undercurrent that drives everything I do in the relationship. And you can tell that someone's got something against you. But once you forgive them, you may still remember, but there's no tension internally that changes your behavior. I like to call it a trigger. There's nothing in your heart that triggers you in their presence. So now your relationship can be fully restored. You can engage with them out of love and kindness as if nothing ever happened. You recognize something happened, but your heart is healed because there's nothing wounded in your heart because you've released the wound. That's basically what releasing is.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're able to engage normally. That I think is the biggest thing with relationships. So whether you tell them personally you've forgiven them or not, simply the fact that you've forgiven them, you're engaging at a loving, compassionate level the whole time.
Mm. We're talking with Beatty Carmichael and his book, as well as website, Outrageous Peace, outrageouspeace.com. And you are listening to New Paradigms for a New World. This is Tell Me Your Story. I am Reverend Dr. D. He is Beatty Carmichael. And I want to ask you about the dynamics of the reverse of what we've been talking about. What about when we are seeking forgiveness from someone else? Are we talking about the same thing here? Am I, because it's like, okay, I am going to forgive, oh, let's just say I'm going to forgive my wife for, kind of the example you just gave about yours. But now I want to seek forgiveness from someone else.
So that's different. If I want to seek forgiveness from them because I know I hurt them,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to go and say, will you please forgive me? So while there's nothing I'm holding on to, by seeking that forgiveness, it's going to help them release it and restore, right? Restore the peace in their relationship, peace in their internal side when they release it. If I know someone has something against me and I have no clue, like let's say a business relationship, then unless I have some relationship capital on why they should forgive me, I'm not sure asking them to forgive me on something that I don't know is going to be effective unless I approach it, hey, I get the feeling that something's happened.
Mm-hmm.
Did I get this irritability from you facing me. Is there something I've done that I need to ask your forgiveness for?
Mm-hmm.
Now that could open it back up. But it's a lot easier when you know if you did something directly to go ask them for forgiveness and that releases them. But there's nothing in your heart that you need to release in that environment.
All right. But what if I just went up to them and said, look, I'm sorry for being this way, that way, the other way, as opposed to saying, please forgive me for being this way, that way, or the other way.
Right. So on that, the apology is really good because what they're holding on to is you hurt me and you meant to, right? That's
Mm.
the hurt that, by the way, interesting, unforgiveness is usually when it's a close relationship because unforgiveness feels like you stabbed me in the back. You did something purposely to hurt me and you therefore violated this relationship we have. And how dare you do that? Why would you do that? Do you not love me anymore? So these are the things going on in that mental process. So when you come up and say, um, I'm sorry, I should not have done that, that helps. But the next statement, would you please forgive me for that, really kind of knocks it over the edge because now they're looking for your apology,
Mm-hmm.
but now it knocks the ball into their court that says, you know, I admit I was wrong. I apologize for doing that. Now, would you forgive me? Would you release me from that hold?
Yeah.
And now it kind of puts it in their corner to say, am I going to do the same thing? I want him to apologize, but now am I going to release him? So that's usually the best route to smooth things out.
You know, there was this four-step thing, and I'm not sure if I shared it with you the last time, that I actually had to push myself through back in January of 2017. And I had gotten sucked into the whole political thing a few months earlier, and it took me about 6 months to, as I put it, to get unsucked. And the first step, of course, was thank you, teacher, for teaching me how not to be. But the second step, and I'd like your observation on this, okay? My second step was I forgive you, but more importantly, I forgive myself for allowing myself to be sucked into this quagmire. Um, Self forgiveness in this context of looking for and finding outrageous peace. How does that dynamic work?
I think I love the dynamic. And see, there's two things about releasing. Number one, what you're doing is essentially what I use as my 3 step: name it, locate it, release it. You're guiding yourself to releasing. And on things that we can quickly identify where the source is, that's a perfect approach. There's a lot of times, though, that people are dealing with issues that they don't connect the dots.
Mm-hmm.
Like another friend of mine, her name is Wendy, and she'd been dealing with this sciatica pain
Mm-hmm.
that starts from her neck all the way down to her feet for years. And for her, it simply became something that was part of her. It became part of her daily life. And she learned to just simply live life with it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I recognize it as sounds like misalignment. Now, she had no idea where to even begin looking. For you, in that political environment, you knew exactly where it began, right? You probably know the person's name of why it
Oh,
began
yeah.
and all these things. So for you, it's easy to release it when you know what it is. But for a lot of people, we don't know what it is. See, what happens is peace thins over time. And as it thins over time, we have something that we're holding on to that we should have released. So peace starts to thin. Then there's something else. And then there's something else. And most of us have these layers of things that we're holding on to. And our life starts to get erratic. This starts to get, we have anxiety and depression. We have darkness in our mind. We have heaviness, like we're carrying around a heavy load, have pain, usually chronic pain of some sort. And we don't know where to go to release it. That's the key with the next step with outrageous peace. What you're describing is the first step with outrageous peace. Once you understand the idea of releasing things, release it quickly so they don't fester. As soon as something happens, you can recognize it, just let it go. But for many people who have held on to things and they don't even know what they are now, then there's a deeper process to sort of, I hate to use the word program your conscience to reveal it, but
Mm-hmm.
it's basically unlocking things within your conscience so that it can find what it's holding on to and start to surface it so you can start to release it. That is the longer term solution for helping people with a lot of issues, but your process and mine essentially are the same.
Yeah. I even had to move on. Well, not had to. I chose to move on to a third and fourth step. The third was, of course, a question. And it had to come from that place of forgiveness. What is it that makes you, that you're so afraid of, that makes you say and do the things that you do? Now, I'm not asking you to change. I'm wanting to understand so that I can put it behind me and move on with my life and not carry this with me. And as I shared these 3 steps, one of my guests down the road, as I shared this with them, said, "Oh, there's a fourth step." I said, "Oh, there is?" He says, "Yeah." And it's coming from the same place as the third step, coming from that place of forgiveness and so forth, and humility. And that is 3 very simple words: I love you. You have every right to be here just like me. I don't have to like who you are or what you do, but I do have to honor the fact that you have the right, just as I do, to be here doing the things that I'm doing the things that you're doing. And what was real interesting about that 4 step process, the first one was the hardest because my inner voice says, you can't just think this. You
Mhm.
can't say it in your head. You have to say it out loud, not to anybody.
But
You
just
have
speak
to
it
hear
out.
it in
Yeah.
your ears. Yeah. And I thought, wow. So I'm wondering, how important is it for us going through these steps and thinking about the 3 legs of the stool, if you will, the physical, mental, and spiritual, uh, to say some of these things out loud so that our ears hear it, and it sort of, I don't know if it does anything to the neural pathways and the synapses in the brain rewriting and this and that and the other. I'm just wondering how important that part of it is, if it's even an important part.
It is very important. As I've been doing this, so just a short history, background on me, it's now been about 10 years that I started to move this direction in life. And I've tried a lot of different things. And one of the things I do find is when it's spoken out loud, you can measurably see the impact on the results. And I don't know why. So, we have the observation, speaking out loud. Then we have the opinion, why, right? What's the internal mechanics? And I find internally, I can think clearer if I speak it out loud. It makes a bigger impact if I speak something out loud. I remember it if I speak it out loud. Sometimes we talk things out to work it out, but I think there's something even deeper. If you think of this, a lot of times people use the term inner self. I remember I was talking with a guy named David, and I was asking him something about, out of balance and misalignment stuff. He said, I've been dealing with depression and anxiety for 26 years.
Mm.
And he used the word inner self a lot, that in my inner self. So we all recognize an inner self. When we speak out loud, it's almost as if our inner self hears it. But if we simply think only in our mind, the inner self doesn't hear it. Now, I don't know if that's true. I'm just saying it feels this way. So when I'm trying to release something, I'm actually releasing it from that inner self part of me, that conscience part of me. It's me, but it's almost like a different part of me. And it needs to hear what I'm directing it to do. I release this. I release that person. But there's more things that you release, and sometimes there are things that you break, not like a glass, but you separate things that your inner self is connected to in some strange way. There's a lot more there, and so by speaking it out loud, it's almost like I'm giving instructions to my inner self what to do. And as I'm declaring, I release this person, my inner self then is now releasing it. I can almost visualize releasing that person out of my heart, or releasing that anger I've been holding on to, or releasing that fear, or whatever it is that's surfacing.
Mm-hmm.
And by telling it, speaking it, my inner self is following.
Ah, it's fascinating stuff. I got to tell you. We're talking about outrageous peace, and we're talking with Beatty Carmichael here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Reverend Dr. D. Beatty Carmichael is my guest, and Outrageous Peace is his book. Outrageouspeace.com is his website as well. I'm going to ask you this question I asked you the last time, too. Is it available in Audible for folks to be able to listen to?
It is getting close to being available. It's not yet, but I would think within a month or so it should be available.
Wonderful, wonderful. And it's not a long book. It's not a
No,
huge tome, you know, or
it'll be a
volume.
very inexpensive book, like maybe $2 or $3, because I think Audible charges based on length, and this is less than 1 hour.
Oh, wonderful. Even better. You'll be able to listen to it every day if you wanted
Get it
to.
for free, right? It's so
Yeah.
cheap, they probably won't even charge you for it.
I also know too, and in some instances, what they will do actually is they will give you the Audible version free if you purchase the print version, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I subscribe to Audible, so I have credits that are building up. I better use some of them before they expire. And I'll get a copy of your book when it's available. I love listening. And I always tell people, I said, look, whether you're listening or actually holding the book or even the Kindle and reading it, you're still reading. I used to listen to audio tapes, audio books back in I think it was the late 60s and 70s. Being born legally blind, I I would listen to talking books for the blind as well as recordings for the blind. One was recreational, the other one's textbooks. I'm curious about something a little deeper, especially going into the more esoteric and spiritual aspects. People get born into this world with certain conditions. I was born with a triple threat, so to speak, visually. I had bilateral cataracts, which meant cataracts in both eyes, nystagmus, and stigmatism. So is there some form of forgiveness that carries over from, say, lifetime to lifetime? That's assuming that you are one who believes in this concept of reincarnation.
Yeah, so I definitely believe there's a lot of things that carry over. In fact, there's a great book called Many Lives, Many Masters from a psychotherapist that pretty well proves that there's something going on there. I don't see, so two things. Number one, I want to be really clear because if you limit this to only unforgiveness, you're going to miss out on a lot of things that we hold on to that have nothing to do with unforgiveness, but they have all kinds of other things to do with putting stress on our mental and physical. Okay.
Mm.
So unforgiveness is a big part, but there's a lot more there. But as far as things that you're born with, I would say that this outrageous piece doesn't really impact those type of things. I call it when I try to teach this, I mention it, things that we add to ourselves and then deformities in which we were born. If you're missing an arm when you were born, it's not likely going through outrageous peace and it's going to grow, right? Because it
Right.
just physically
Yeah.
wasn't there. So this is more of those things that our body is adjusting to. If you go back to that three-legged stool,
Hmm.
when one leg is out of whack, when that spiritual leg is out of whack because we're holding on to things internally that we shouldn't, then the stress on the other two legs builds over time. And that then creates, sicknesses, issues, illnesses, pain, those type of things in our life that they get restored when we take the pressure off of them by getting back in alignment. So it's only those things that come into our life during life because we're out of alignment that outrageous peace can really resolve.
Mm.
But I've seen a lot of things that I got to tell you this story. This is this these are so there's a outrageouspeace.com has a simplified version of this release. And I want to sort of make a broad statement for our listening audience that to release, so you have it, name it, locate it, release it.
Hmm.
Name the problem. Like my friend we talked about last time, he had anxiety and he was being torn up and doctor said you're going to have it the rest of your life. I said, no, anxiety is easy to get rid of. So that's naming it. Then we located it. For him, it was easy. How long have you had it? A year and a half. What happened a year and a half ago that made you afraid? Wife got diagnosed with lumps in her breast. Okay, so now you need to let go of fear for that because fear and anxiety are kin. So he let go of fear and released it, and the anxiety was gone by the end of the day. That's easy to do when it's a singular thing and you know the process. But there's a lot of other things that are deeper that we've forgotten about that we've been living with, like my friend Wendy with that sciatica. And it took a different approach to identify, to locate it and release it. That's what I have in chapter 8 with Outrageous Peace, is sort of a non-religious meditative prayer that gives the right words to your inner self, your conscience, to then start to identify what am I trying to get rid of and what am I holding on to that may be causing it. And it does all the work internally. But there's an advanced version that I do when I teach at the Addiction Recovery Center. And that's the story I want to share on this one. I was traveling in Spain to visit my daughter. She lives in Spain. And this was last year. And I met a man over there who he was completely deaf in his left ear and mostly deaf in his right ear. And it was something happened about 10 years ago. And understanding how misalignment can operate and the incredible pressure it can put in physical and mental legs of your body,
Hmm.
I started to guide him through a little bit more robust version of this. The same type of stuff I do at the Addiction Recovery Center. And I think I saw him the next day, and his hearing had mostly returned to both ears. He could now hear out of the left ear and the right ear. I saw him about 100 feet away and said, over there, maybe 30 meters if you're in the meters world. But I said, hey, Dominic. And he said, hey, Beatty, it's good to see you. And he never would have been able to do that earlier. So there is, and I followed up with him and I was asking him, what type of things surfaced that could have been pressure that caused your body to shut down on its hearing? And it was several people with unforgiveness and one or two other things that he had done that he hadn't even released himself from. Not a forgiveness of himself, but just, it's like sometimes you're just so upset you did something wrong and you just hold on to this. I'm sad because I did that. You just have to let it go. And it was things like that that he was able to identify, locate, let go, and it started to restore his hearing back. So
Mm.
I've seen all kinds of things happen, but they're not always unforgiveness, but they're always tied to things that were onset after life began. And if they're onset after you've already been living, then usually there's something that caused that onset. Does that make sense between that and
Oh yeah.
deformity?
Oh,
Okay.
absolutely, absolutely. And I know too that what's really fascinating to me is how and I'm not sure what the actual the study is, what they call it, but it's where they've identified the different organs in the body and what emotional aspects of the human being that they are attributed to. For
Yeah.
example, back in 2021, yeah, 2021. One afternoon, I had lunch and I finished my lunch. And then a few hours later, I started feeling this weird feeling in my gut. What the heck? Oh, must just be indigestion. All right, all right. I get home and it's kind of still there, and I shared this with my wife and she said, okay, well, let's see how you're doing a little later. That evening around, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 o'clock, it was still there. She says, we're going to the ER because she knew. Well, the underlying part of it was that the organ that was affected was associated with anger in the body. Now, there are two organs that are actually associated. One is the liver, and in my case, the other one was the gallbladder. And it turns out that I had an infected gallbladder with a golf ball sized gallstone. At least that's what he said. It was a. Now that's funny too, because usually they use fruit as a sizing measure, and in this case, it was a golf ball. In any event, what was funny was prior to the surgery, let's just use the example of spilling a glass of milk. Oh! After removal of the gallbladder, it was okay.
Yeah.
Let's just clean it up. It was that profound.
Y-
So go ahead, because
Yeah.
your
I'm
observation.
just thinking out loud. This now starts to make more sense. It may connect some dots for me because there's another book called Your Body, something like Your Body Remembers. I forget
Mm,
it. That's not the title, but
right.
it's talking about from a scientific standpoint where, like, if a trauma happens to you, it's
Mhm.
remembered somewhere in your body in the muscle, and they can actually point to it. What you're talking about is a similar concept, and I've always wondered how releasing something internally can make a relatively fast recovery physically or mentally. But that's what you're describing having surgery on your gallbladder. Now, the anger level just drops immensely. The same thing as when someone releases a hold on something that they got angry about and they haven't let go of it and they release it, the same thing happens. It almost makes me wonder if releasing these things is releasing it from different parts within the body that drives it. There's so much we don't understand. And that's what makes life fascinating when, for people like you and me, at least,
Yeah.
to really explore and say, how does this work?
It's one of the things too that I have been wanting to find out, and I need to find a book like that that helps to define those kinds of things. Because for me, as I have shared numerous times on this program, I am dealing with this challenge with blood sugar, glucose levels. And I'm thinking, okay, I believe it's the spleen, I think I'm correct, that generates the insulin that then, of course, helps to disperse the glucose in the blood and keep you at a fairly even keel. Although, again, it goes up and down just like your blood pressure. So I'm thinking, okay, if the gallbladder and the liver are sort of the sources of anger, then what is the spleen? What is that? What emotional attribute of the human being is the spleen? So that's something I've got to research and
Yeah.
Not sure. I might consider checking with AI. I say, hey, AI, or whatever. I think I actually created a name for my AI. I can't remember what it is right now. In any event, be a fascinating study to say the very least. And because those kinds of things do help us to understand a little bit better, especially if, let's just say, you're seeing your medic, your doctor, what have you. You have blood work done, and they go down this list of things that they see that concern them, and then other things that they see that, oh, that's in the normal range. You're good to go in that regard. And maybe you've got a good mental and emotional balance in your life, that kind of thing, which is great. And again, we're all working to improve ourselves because there's always room for improvement, no matter how good you feel, right? Um, so that'd be very fascinating to look into that as well. But I love the stories you've shared with us on this program today and before in regards to the people who have had these certain conditions. They do the forgiveness, the outrageous peace process that you take them through, and it goes away,
Let me
or at the
share
very
something.
least, it
Yeah,
diminishes. It
let me
diminishes.
share. I want to share a broader picture for a
Okay.
moment. For anyone who's had multiple partners, at least one that
Hmm.
was controlling. Okay, so let me phrase it this way: there's a spiritual connection uh, when you have a sexual relationship with someone. So if you've had a sexual partner in the past that was a controlling person, even if you have forgiven the person for whatever they did, and you no longer involved with them. Maybe that was a relationship 10 years ago. I see this a lot in the Addiction Recovery Center with the ladies I teach. They'll always say that they still feel like they're being controlled by that person, that that person is still in their life, even if that person is already dead. So watch this. How does that work? It's not unforgiveness, but there's something else, that third leg, right, in the spiritual realm that we don't understand what that is. But what I've been able to identify in terms of a process, that there is a connection sometimes that we're holding, that that our inner self is still connected to that person.
Hmm.
It has nothing to do with unforgiveness. It has something to do with a different category of something. And I have found that when you learn how to tell your inner self to break that connection, then that control that they feel from that other person disappears.
Mm.
And so now this says, what in the world could be going on so this is not forgiveness. This is not releasing anger. Or this is actually breaking some other connection, a releasing of a connection of another person
Mm.
that hasn't been in your life for years. You haven't thought about that person, but yet you still feel controlled. Whatever that person was, if there was a violence, if there was a control, a manipulation, a narcissism, you still feel that presence in your life until you break that spiritual connection. And then now that you're back in balance and alignment in that category, then the impact in your life mentally and physically starts to recover. It's really strange the breadth of what I've seen with this.
Yeah. There is a great phrase that I heard, and with what you've just described, I don't know how this would even help. It probably doesn't, but it's kind of cute. Basically, what you're saying is this individual, living or dead, is still living up here rent free.
Yes.
Rent free. So it's like either break the lease or start charging them, kind of thing. I remember hearing that in regards to, it was in the Big Bang Theory, the television series, and Will Wheaton was I can't remember the guy's name now. Jim Parsons was the actor's name, and Sheldon was his name. Yeah, the character. And basically, Will Wheaton basically says, the beautiful thing is, Sheldon, I'm living right up here, rent free, in your head. And, just sort of as a dig. But that's something we do all the time because we are. You use the term marinate. Well, I was thinking of marinating or stewing,
Hmm.
and it just goes on, and eventually starts to ferment and foment, so to speak, and it just gets worse and worse until we do ourselves harm. I mean, and we don't. It may not even be conscious. It's an unconscious process that goes on, and that's why I'm going to do some research in that regards as far as the. Again, I'm pretty sure it is the spleen that does the insulin. I think that's right. Anyway, I'll find out. We're talking with Beatty Carmichael. We're talking about outrageous peace, and we're doing that right here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Reverend Dr. D. He is Beatty Carmichael. His book is Outrageous Peace, and we hope that you will get a copy. Especially hang in there because the Audible's coming. By the way, did you read it, or do they have someone, your publisher's having someone else, a narrator, a professional narrator, read it?
It'll be me.
Wonderful. That's
Yes.
even better. There is such a connection in that regard. Now, not all authors are comfortable doing that, and not all authors may even have the voice to do that. But at the same time, there's an energetic when the author reads their own words that other people can listen to that really makes a lot of difference. Plus the fact where you want the inflection because you wrote it, right?
Right.
And there's just something so personal about that, and that's part of the thing I like about this program is I get to go into the world of Beatty Carmichael on this particular program. I get to find out a little bit more about him and the work that he is doing. And folks, I hope you'll do the same when and we'll let you know. We'll let you know. We'll have him back and we'll talk about that process as well. And really, really excited about that. And thank you so much for coming back and being a part of the work that we are doing here.
Well, thanks for letting me back. It's been a great pleasure. And hopefully, for those who are listening, this is opening some ideas onto how to get free some things. And hopefully, you'll check out outrageouspeace.com and start to get free.
Absolutely. We encourage people to do that. We lay out this smorgasbord table, Beatty, and every time we do a new interview, we add more to the table. And we ask people to come and take what resonates with them and then come back again because what didn't resonate with them before may this time. And just keep coming back and taking what you can. And so you can do that, folks, when you go to the various locations for the platforms, podcasting and videocasting I'm going to tell you about. But I do want to remind you, folks, that this program comes your way on Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and we're streaming live from 8 to 9 a.m. Monday through Friday, as well as all of those other times, all 9 of them, at richarddugan.com. We have podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. And Beatty, now not only are we on YouTube, but we're also on another platform, a video platform called Rumble.
Love
And
it.
hope that folks will check that out as well. We also hope that you will subscribe and click notifications so that every time we put up a new conversation, you'll be notified. We hope you'll pick up a copy of my book, which is Choices 5 Steps for Life, available through Amazon. I haven't expanded quite yet to some other publishing outlets, but that's coming. We hope you'll get a copy in a hardcover, paperback, or Kindle. We also hope that you can leave us a tip. PayPal is our tip jar, if you will. And when you go to richarddugan.com, there are links to both Amazon and to PayPal. And finally, we hope that you will take some time uh, during this time that you're going through, not only to work on these processes of forgiveness, but also to listen to that still small voice in the quiet, peaceful, calm, still place in your inner life. So please take some time to do that. With all of that being said, believe it or not, I'm going to ask you those 3 questions I asked you the last time. Sometimes the answers change. And if they don't, that's fine too. I'm actually thinking about putting together a book of the answers to these questions that I've been asking now for, are you ready for this? 18 years. It's going
Wow.
to be a big book, or parts 2, 3, and 4. Nonetheless, the first of those three questions is, who is Beatty Carmichael?
Beatty Carmichael. I'm just a normal guy with a big heart who wants to see people get free.
What gets you up in the morning?
My alarm clock.
And what was your best day?
Oh gosh. I don't want to say it this way, but to be honest, I have so many good days that I'm not sure which one is best. But if I were to say, what is a great day? Um, I really loved, um, I think Lanita, the story that I shared, who was legally blind, with her eyesight. That was really great because I kept running into them and they were a sweet couple. They're now married, they have a child, and it's just really great to make an impact and then follow up and see that impact in their lives.
Hmm. Well, we are glad that you've joined us here for the second time. We hope it won't be the last, to share your life and the work that you are doing through Outrageous Peace with outrageouspeace.com. Folks, check it out and wait just not too far from now. The Audible will be available. And to those of you who are listening and watching, thank you for doing so. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to all. Jeanette, I'm still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I'll see you on the other side. Mike, thanks for being in my life and letting me be in yours. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.